Hurricane Laura. The 4 p.m. update came out about 2 minutes ago, and we've got a maximum sustained wind of 145 knots, which puts it solidly in the Category 4 range. The storm continuing to move northwest at 15 miles an hour, and the central pressure 947 millibars. Now, I've been checking over some of the models. Fortunately, we have pretty good agreement between the GFS and European model. Those are the two heavyweights, and they're bringing the storm into southwest Louisiana near Cameron at about 6 to 7 Z, which is going to be just after midnight. We do still have a few outliers, the UK Met going a little bit far west, and the CMC Canadian model even going further west towards High Island. But in this morning's run, we've seen it fall in line with the GFS. So what will happen? I think the key to that is to start looking at some of the topography maps. Yeah, you don't see very much of this on the news sites or on live streams. But yeah, there's the coastline. The Texas-Louisiana state line is about right there. And I believe that each of these boxes is about a mile in length. That looks about right. So what do we have? Facing the ocean, a lot of swamp. So it is kind of fortunate that this is not going into an area like Galveston. Now, this is somewhat of a barrier island. The elevation averages only a couple feet. We're expecting a pretty unprecedented storm surge. They're talking about 15 feet at least. So that'll easily be able to top this swampy area. The question is, how far inland is it going to go? Well, up to the north, about 10 or 15 miles, we hit Port Arthur, and they're almost certainly going to get some of the surge off of Sabine Lake right here. The elevations in Port Arthur, well, they're not showing it on this chart, but let's switch over to a closer chart. Now, these elevations that we see here are in feet, so let me zoom in here. 5 feet, 10 feet right there, and this little barrier island runs about 5 to 10 feet through the gaps, and the highest I'm seeing here probably about 15 to 20 right there. So yeah, this looks pretty problematic. I don't know how far inland a surge like this would go. You would probably have to talk to a hydrologist to know for sure, but if I was in Port Arthur, I would be evacuating for absolutely sure. I would not be anywhere near that place. Now we have these other areas out here. Let me bring up a map. And what we see here is that these are mostly gas fields, swampland, and we don't really get into any populated areas till we hit Cameron. Now, that is right under the gun right there. You can see the elevations there, only about 5 feet. So I think a lot of this is going to be underwater, and hopefully they're getting these people evacuated. I am expecting a lot of the damage to come inland into the Lake Charles area, and let me show you a product that does not exist anywhere on the internet that I'm aware of. This is a maximum wind swath chart, and these are maximum winds from the high-resolution rapid refresh. These were produced right here this afternoon by Stacking Frames from ESRL's products. So there you go. There's the state borders. Sorry about this poor sketch. And this is constructed from the hourly high-resolution rapid refresh model. And the only reason I'm using the high-resolution rapid refresh model is because it is closely following the GFS and ECMWF path. Otherwise, I would probably not use this data. Now, because they use a repeating scale, like this is the same as this, that's a huge problem. So we're not able to present any of the gusts over 65 miles an hour. Just assume that a lot of this is probably 80 to 90 and 100 knots. Now, what this shows us, the 55 contour is blue. That's going to be about 62 miles an hour. So anywhere in that blue area, we're expecting winds up to 62 miles an hour as far as gusts. Okay, so this probably means we're going to see a lot of the pine forest down in western Louisiana, and that's probably going to take out some of the power grid, and then you'll have localized failures in some of the towns and cities. In Shreveport right here, I think they're going to see some problems tomorrow as that comes inland. Also Texarkana, Monroe, and I'm less certain what's going to happen up to the north there. It looks like Little Rock may be getting some weaker wind gusts up there, maybe in the 40 to 50 mile an hour range. But anywhere, let's see, from Paris to Houston, anywhere east of that line, that's where the winds are going to be above 30 miles an hour. And west of there, west of Houston to Paris, we don't really expect any impacts. The wind should stay below 25 miles an hour or so. So if you're in Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, and western Houston, you should be okay. And of course, anywhere along the edge of this track, there is uncertainty. It doesn't take much of a change in that track to get a large change in the wind speed. So take this as an estimate of maximum winds. If you're anywhere in Louisiana west of the Mississippi River, I think you're going to be looking at power outages and interruptions. You should stockpile all the food and water that you can. Keep in mind that you can fill the bathtub, use that to flush the toilet, just pour it in there. And you can use any containers you have to store water. And remember, your water heater is a source of water, probably not potable. And search the internet for other recommended precautions and tips. My personal tip, get all of your cell phone stuff charged if you're anywhere east of Dallas, just in case, anywhere Houston eastward. And if you can't find batteries while you're out, get a USB charger. Or look in the automotive section for a plug-in power port. There's a lot of solutions you can look at. And I've used those to bring power into the house after our neighborhood was hit by a tornado in 2010 in Oklahoma. Now, my message for those of you in Louisiana, do not put off the opportunity to evacuate. One consideration is a lot of the shelters are in a difficult situation because of COVID. It's not going to be the kind of shelter situation that you may remember from 5 years ago. And they are especially strained. And plus, a lot of agencies did not really expect this increase to Category 4 that we had today. So if you stay behind and find that you need resources, you may be in a very difficult situation. So you're going to have a much better time getting out of the area if you have some place to stay in Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and so on. And even if you're in Beaumont, Port Arthur, I would get out if you could, because we cannot be 100% certain in these forecast tracks. And even for those of you in extreme eastern Texas and western Louisiana, all the way up to Shreveport, it may be a good idea to preemptively evacuate if you can. I don't expect any life or death problems, but it will likely be very difficult while they try to restore power and services. So, time to focus on the meteorology. One of our concerns is the outer spiral bands. You can see one spiral band there moving into Louisiana, and there should be others coming in with the circulation. Now, anywhere to the right of the track, it's going to be coming up like that. The atmosphere is pretty sheared in the low levels there, and that can make it a potent area for tornadogenesis. So any of these storms coming in, I would be close to shelter just in case. You're not going to get F4, F5 tornadoes with these supercells. They're kind of shallow and fast moving, but they can be enough to cause damage. So if you are able to seek shelter, you should be okay. And you can see SPC there. They've got watch boxes out. There's the tornado watch covering that band right there. That's out till 9 p.m. And they're likely going to reissue that as the hurricane comes inland. So, yeah, along that band right there, possibility of isolated tornadoes, and then isolated to scattered tornadoes with the second spiral bands that come inland this evening. Wow, 12 minutes in. We better get to that surface map. Here's the pattern across the southeastern U.S. There's Laura off the coast. And let's see, what do we got here? Basically a tropical air mass across all of the southeast. And we see this extension of a Bermuda high into the Carolinas and the Appalachians. That's given us that easterly flow all the way from Florida to Texas. Well, we're about ready to blow this popsicle stand, and before we do, let's take a look at the radar. This is the Lake Charles radar, picking up that circulation very nicely. The width of that eye, about 22 nautical miles. And let's look at the base velocity. And there we see a classic hurricane signature. Let's zoom in on that. And you can see some of the winds. 135 knots inbound towards the radar. So that's heading that way. And then we have outbounds going that way. About 97 knots out. And that's basically just, outlining the circulation. And then out to the northeast, we see the next spiral bands forming up. This could be one right here. I'm not sure. That looks a little bit elevated. These look more like deep convective elements, but that's what we're going to be watching this evening as it moves inland. And we'll probably see a few tornadoes within that band right there. And we'll go ahead and close off with one last look at the eye of Laura. And we're actually getting some of the spiral bands here, so we'll kind of end with that. So enjoy and stay safe, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.